I've never flown a plane, but as I understand it, you can't just buy one and hop in. First, you have to complete a bunch of flight simulations before you ever step foot in the real thing. And while there's no such thing as a psychedelic simulator, the same logic applies. There are certain skills we can learn before ever taking psychedelics, and by learning these skills, we greatly increase the chances that we have a safe trip that leads to lasting positive change. And while there are many different things that go into preparation for a journey, there's one particular practice I think is not given enough focus. And there's actually scientific evidence showing that doing this and psychedelics have similar effects on the brain. I'm referring to meditation, which is probably not that surprising. If you've ever met someone that meditates frequently, there's a decent chance they've done psychedelics before and vice versa. But why is it that meditation can be so helpful in the context of psychedelic journeys? As a psychedelic integration coach, here's how I would explain it. Two men are looking at the sky. They each have on a pair of sunglasses, one with an orange tint and one with a blue tint. If you were to ask them what color the sky was at that very moment, their answers would be slightly different due to the different lenses they're wearing. Neither one of them is wrong. They are simply describing reality as they experience it according to their lenses. In some ways, you also have a pair of glasses on from the minute you're born. But unlike normal glasses, these ones don't just affect your vision. They affect every aspect of how you experience reality. They affect how you perceive food, smells, touch, sounds, people, places, things, etc. Unfortunately, these glasses are hard to keep clean. As you go through life, your glasses collect different particles, which represent different life experiences. If your parents had certain particles on their glasses, it's likely that you collected some of those. If the people in the culture you grew up in had certain particles, you probably got some of those too. The older you get, the dirtier your lenses are, and therefore you're no longer perceiving reality as it truly is. You're perceiving reality through the lenses and the particles, and the problem is you don't even realize these particles are there. When we get older, we move through life faster and faster. The faster we move, the more particles collect on the lenses. Particles from similar experiences create buildup, and this buildup transforms from a collection of individual experiences to an unconscious belief that has a profound effect on how we perceive reality. For example, I grew up in a family and culture that highly valued education, more specifically prestigious education. My older brother often lectured me on how important it was that I got into an elite university. My peers also had similar goals, and our school district would often celebrate the kids who achieved this feat. Due to this buildup of particles, I developed a belief that getting into a top school was the most important thing I'd ever do, which is really silly looking back on it. The unconscious part of it, however, which I only became aware of later on, was that my self-worth was directly tied to my educational or career success. How I viewed myself was not based in reality. It was skewed by this unconscious belief that came about due to a buildup of particles. The thing is, it doesn't really matter whether the unconscious beliefs are true or not. The important part is just becoming aware that they exist in the first place, because if we are not aware, then they can only be true. If we never take the time to slow down, the buildup only becomes bigger, and we become even less aware of how these unconscious beliefs are affecting how we perceive reality. Fortunately, however, there are tools we can use to reverse this process, one of which is meditation. When we meditate, we stop running for a little bit. This prevents the buildup of additional particles and allows us to finally see reality clearly. It becomes increasingly obvious how the buildup is affecting how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Just having this awareness naturally causes some of the particles to fall away. By meditating, we are gradually digesting past experiences and societal conditions that we were not consciously aware of. Piece by piece, we are separating the particles from the lens and remembering what it's like to perceive reality as it is. Psychedelics, on the other hand, are like removing the lens altogether. Suddenly, you are face to face with all the particles in a giant pile. For a few brief moments, it becomes really obvious what has been causing your perception of reality to be distorted. You finally see the particles as they truly are. This experience could be a mixture of overwhelming and awe-inspiring and beautiful all at once. But the important thing is that you finally realize the particles are not the lenses themselves. The particles are not reality. And if you had developed a meditation practice prior to this experience, you might find that confronting the particles head-on is less overwhelming. By meditating, you already began separating the particles from the buildup, so seeing them all at once is not as surprising or overwhelming. And whereas previously they were all stuck together, due to the meditation, all the particles are a bit looser, and you could wipe them away in big chunks. When the effects of the psychedelics wear off, you might even feel a certain glow. You were able to clear out a lot of particles, and your glasses might be cleaner than they have been in years. But this experience would be useless if you fail to continue meditating. As you get back into the busyness of life, the particles will continue to accumulate. If you're not careful, you might end up right back where you started with a dirty pair of glasses. That's why keeping up the meditation practice is so important. Having those few moments a day to slow down naturally allows your lenses to maintain their pristine clarity. If you're one of those people who have tried meditation before but were unable to stick with it, I believe psychedelics can be a great way to launch yourself into a consistent practice. The difficult part of starting any habit is the first few weeks, particularly with something like meditation where the immediate payoff is not obvious. You might find it helpful to plan an intentional psychedelic journey a full month in advance and start a meditation practice as preparation for that journey. This relieves some of the pressure of feeling like you need to achieve immediate results. The meditation is, the psychedelics, what training is for a marathon. And by doing this training, you greatly increase the chance that your psychedelic journey is safe and leads to lasting positive change. And after your psychedelic experience, you might even find that your meditation takes on a deeper meaning, and it's even easier to get into a consistent practice because you've already built this foundation, which is what happened to me. Before I ever tried psychedelics, I was doing a bit of meditation, but to be honest, I hated it. It felt very mechanical and I couldn't see any noticeable results. Then I did psychedelics and had the single most profound experience of my life. For a few brief moments, I was able to view all the buildup, in this case my depression, in a completely different light. I finally remembered what it was like to have a clean pair of glasses. Of course, this feeling didn't last and the particles returned, but the memory stayed. I now had a new North Star to aim for, and it created tremendous momentum in my meditation practice, which I've now been at for over 5 years. This is not sponsored, but if you're interested in learning meditation, I highly recommend the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. They offer a 28-day introductory course, which I think is the perfect blend of theory and actual practice. What's even more amazing is that if you can't afford a subscription, they offer free scholarships. Again, not a sponsor, just my recommendation. So remember, psychedelics are a great tool, but it's up to you to keep your glasses clean, and meditation is by far one of the best ways to do so. And if you're able to safely combine these two practices together, the results can be pretty amazing. In future videos, if people are interested, I'll talk more about how to use psychedelics at home in the therapeutic context, not just for fun. So thanks for sticking around, and subscribe if you want to see more.